everybody? It's your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco here with you again, and it's time for more Spider-Man. Today, we are going to be looking at a really fun issue of Amazing Spider-Man 17. It's got some cool, definitely some cool artwork. It's got some classic tropes of Spider-Man in the series, and it's got a return of probably what will end up being the most classic Spider-Man villain of all time. So I'm very excited to get that out and for us to look at this together today. I do want to also, of course, start off the video with thanking everybody for checking this out. For those of you who have been subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, viewing the videos, really fantastic. Appreciate it so much. And just, again, thanks for everything. I wouldn't be doing it if folks weren't interested or enjoying the videos. So thank you so much. If you are here and you have subscribed to the channel, or if you're checking this out and haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely consider making sure that you subscribe. The Spider-Man retrospective videos come out every Monday at 8 a.m. So you've always got one of those to look forward to. And then I'm also working on some more content here for the channel. I'm going to be doing some more live streaming. I have another kind of show idea that we're going to be doing, talking about pop culture and what's going on, hopefully with my wife. We're talking about starting up that show very soon. And I'm also trying to coordinate some time with one of the Spider-Man episode fans here, who has been Nick Capulto, who's been, hope I pronounced that right, who's been viewing every video, dropping comments, and I'm hoping to have some one-on-one conversation time with him in a live stream here on the channel as well. So subscribe. We got a lot of stuff coming up, and it's going to be super, super fun. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get to the story. So here we go. Here is the cover for Amazing Spider-Man 17. I will let everybody know, if this is your first video, this is a scanned PDF copy of the comic book that came out from Marvel in 2004. So they had taken a copy, put it on a flatbed scanner, and actually scanned the pages. So you're going to see the yellowing of the paper. You're going to see all the original ads. This is pretty much what it would have looked like for the person who bought it for 12 cents off the rack, off the old spinner rack. Now, this one, I did pull up a cleaner version. So in this scan, sometimes, especially the covers, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because they are more glossy and then the ink changes over time. But you can see in this version of the cover here, there's a lot of black. Behind the Amazing Spider-Man trade dress, it's black and it fades to a blue. Spidey's costume is entirely red and black. But we've seen, as we went from the first issue of Amazing Fantasy 15, where it's very red and black, to the more recent issues of Spider-Man, the black has turned more blue. So what I did is I went and found a cleaner image. This is more like a photo image probably than a scanned image. And you can see the color difference. And so this one, you can see there where this was a dark blue going to fading to a lighter blue. You can see Spidey is almost entirely blue. And then, of course, it's a lot brighter on the figures down below. But all things considered, it's a 60-year-old comic book. Well, by 2004, it would have been a 40-year-old comic book. That's really impressive. So that it's held up as well as they did even here. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that and kind of let you know what the difference was and what we were seeing. I like this cover. I think it's good in terms of the composition. You have your three main figures here, divided in a diagonal, which is more interesting than if you do it in parallel or perpendicular lines. So the diagonals are nice. It makes it a more interesting read. You have your combatants with the Human Torch flying through, and the way that his flame trails behind it really does lead to, or lend to motion, showing that motion of the Human Torch. Now, I do have a couple things I think are a little weird. So if we zoom in here, you can see that the Human Torch's face is like, he has this weird little smile on his face. And then some of the figures down here are smiling and laughing, and some are terrified. So it does play into the story as far as the crowd goes, but even in the story, we'll see Johnny Storm isn't necessarily smiling as he's doing this. He knows what's going on, that this is a real deal. Um, but we'll get there. So I just thought it's very funny that this battle seems pretty intense between Green Goblin and Spider-Man, but the Torch has this little half like Mona Lisa grin on his face. So I thought that was pretty funny. So let's zoom back out and let's go ahead and get in. So here we have our splash page, and this is one that I really like. We've seen over the series, if you've followed along, oftentimes the splash page is just another montage of what's going to happen in the issue, almost like a second cover. And I've kind of lamented the fact that, that's pretty tough. I mean, why would you go ahead and spend a whole page on a big issue just to rehash the cover? Well, here we have Peter in class with his classmates at school, and he's supposed to be studying, but, he's thinking about the Green Goblin. And nice note here, Spider-Man 14 is the appearance where he had that battle with the Green Goblin. So if you want to go back and check that out, you can see my episode about issue number 14, where we cover his battle with the Green Goblin. So I like this splash page a lot. I always love the half Spidey face, even though it's not drawn there to show you his spider senses going off. It's just, again, a reminder this is Peter Parker, and he's sort of living that dual life. In one mode, he's Peter Parker's student, and in the other mode, he is still Spider-Man at heart. This page 2, we're introduced to the Green Goblin's new Goblin Glider. So before, if you know, he had a rocket-powered broomstick that he sort of just hovered on. And by his next appearance here, we see it's the Goblin Glider, and that becomes a really big deal. This bat-shaped glider is very iconic to the Green Goblin and plays a big role in that character and his stories over the years. I've noted here the camera moves. So I've talked about this as well at times. As a comic book artist, you have the ability to be your cinematographer and director like a movie would have. And it's your job to move that camera, which is how far is the viewer's eye from the action that's happening on the page. We have the opportunity to move that camera in any way at any time, in a way that movies can't do, right? There's limitations with cranes or even drones or steady cams or things like that. We can move the camera everywhere. So here, the camera, to start off, the camera is kind of far away. This is what you would kind of call a mid shot. You can see the whole figure in the whole panel, but it's not so far away that we see the area that they're in, the background necessarily that they're in. Then you have kind of closing in a little bit. So you have this, he's fighting a Spider-Man mannequin that he's practicing on because he's upgraded his weapons. And so this is up in the foreground and giving some depth so that we see that the Goblin is further away. Same thing here. Now it's pulled back a little bit, but then we zoom in closer down here to see the different sort of Goblin, or I guess Halloween themed weapons that he has. So he's got bats, ghosts, frogs, looks like a moon, and pumpkins. The pumpkins probably become the most famous thing known for the Green Goblin. And then again, this is more of it's not quite a wide shot or a long shot where he's really far away, but it's definitely panning out. The camera is pulling away. So that's something that we don't always see in some of these comics. Sometimes they'll kind of keep at this sort of middle range and have all the figures be the same size. Steve Ditko has done that. We've talked about that in other episodes, but in this one, he's really moving the camera around nicely. And then here on this page, I did want to note, I thought this was a good example on a very simple way of setting up your environment and your background in a page. So we cut over here, and it's nice to do it on a page turn so we know we're in a new place, and we're looking at the kids back at school. And you know it's school because there's a globe, there's books. It looks like there's maybe this is like would be like a blackboard behind them. Um, and you've given a few things. You've given a little bit of hint of the molding, where the wall meets the floor. There's something here. This could be a desk probably of some kind. You know, maybe some books, things like that. So we know we're in a setting. We're indoors, and it tells us it's school. Now, for the rest of the page, there's no backgrounds. Peter's walking over and he's sort of in this white void, but it's okay. We don't need to. There's a lot of figures here, there's a lot of a dialogue here. And so we don't necessarily need those hints because we've already established in panel one where we are. So we haven't changed scenes. This still makes sense. And then again, as Peter gets closer and people are talking, and we're seeing more of what we call talking heads. So these panels are the perfect example of what comic artists refer to as talking heads. There's no need for a background. We haven't changed location. We haven't changed scenery. So we can really focus on the people, give the dialogue enough room because there's a lot of dialogue that needs to get done to explain what's going to happen. There's Flash Thompson starting a Spider-Man club. They're going to have a big event because he's Spider-Man's biggest fan. A lot of people still don't like Spider-Man. They're hot or cold on Spider-Man, and Flash is trying to convince everybody. So he's starting up this thing. So there's a lot, and this is critical to the story. So you need to have this dialogue here. So there's no reason for having all that background. So it's a very simple way of doing it. So if you're a young comic book artist and you're thinking about getting started, and backgrounds can be one of the most intimidating things to start with, like, you know, how do you keep them consistent? Do you have to draw out map the whole room? Do you create whole environments and then, for reference and stuff like that? You keep it simple and the storytelling works. If you're reading this page and you get to the bottom here and you see that this girl Liz Allen is plotting because she's interested in Peter, and she wants Peter to come to that Spider-Man club meeting because she's interested in him romantically. By the time you get to the end of this page and this panel and you're reading everything that's going on, it doesn't even dawn on you that there's no backgrounds. It really doesn't matter because you're so caught up in the story and the dialogue. So anyway, that I thought was a neat example, and something that, again, if you're a comic book artist and you're feeling like backgrounds are a little intimidating, these are some good lessons you can learn on ways to just use simple stuff to convey that space and that background through a page. So we cut here. There's some action going on. Again, nothing super crazy exciting from an artistic standpoint to talk about. The buildings here are pretty nice. A nice angle. Again, anytime you have an opportunity to have things be at a slight angle, even something as simple as like this building down here in the bottom panel is angled up, it's always better than straight perpendicular or horizontal or vertical lines. Those are dull. It's something we see all the time, but here you've got some nice angle which hints at a perspective. It's not a real true perspective per se, but it's not bad. And it's an easy way to do that kind of stuff. So that's very nice. And again, another simple lesson you can do. If you're drawing a character that moves around a city, find some interesting angles to draw your buildings at. It gives people a sense of real perspective. Turns out it's not a real crime. It's a movie. Spider-Man messes it up. And here's your trope of, as I said, the finicky citizens or fickle citizens. 1 minute they love Spider-Man. Spider-Man saves the day. He's the greatest. Wow, that's amazing. We've seen that in plenty of issues, right? And then he makes a mistake or somebody says something bad about Spider-Man, and they're immediately like, no way, he's terrible. I hate him. He's the worst. So again, that all plays into the story of trying to create this fan club for Spider-Man to up his Q rating, I guess. This page again, I didn't really mention much about it except for this J. Jonah Jameson pose. So he's laughing because Spider-Man did something dumb, and which makes his life happy, right? So drawing a figure tilting their head back is extremely hard. You takes everything you know about a face and the structure of where parts are, your eyes, your nose, mouth, etc., and how they all work together, in terms of the relationship to each other on your face, and it squishes everything down. So when you tip back, instead of the nose being like halfway between your eyes and your mouth, all of a sudden the nose is much higher up and closer to your eyes. The ears get lowered because it's tipping down, and you have to show the round inside curve of the mouth versus the sort of down other curve of the mouth. So it can be a really hard angle to draw a face, but he's done a great job here, not only of capturing the angle, but also keeping it to the character of Jonah. So it's clear he still has the mustache. He's a little bit older, so he's got some wrinkles. He's got a little bit of a soft, chin, jawline, because again, he's a little bit older man. Maybe he's got a couple extra pounds on him, especially compared to, say, like Peter here, who's got a real thin neck, right? So, and then of course the hand coming up and just making this sort of gesture with a hand while he's laughing, again, is a little bit of just natural body language stuff that Steve Ditko does so well. He does it here with Peter also. So there's a lot of, in this issue, there's a lot of push and pull between Betty and Liz. So Liz Allen is the blonde. Betty, of course, we've seen is the girl that Peter actually thinks of as his girlfriend. But Liz has a crush on Peter. So she's calling out to him on the street, and this great reaction of him jerking up his shoulders and his hands kind of flying out, like, oh geez, oh no. And then Betty being jealous. So that's another big part of the story that comes throughout the issue. But again, great body language, great just storytelling with simple stuff like a hand, a gesture. That stuff's great. Nothing super fancy here. Again, in terms of the artwork, a lot of more talking heads. This issue has a ton of dialogue, a ton of talking heads. The action is much, much later in the issue. But we do note here that Spidey's spider sense goes off, and we know, because we saw this earlier, this is the Green Goblin. So he's got that striped suit. You can't see his face in the hat. So we know that this is the Green Goblin. But of course, Spider-Man can't recognize him. He only knows him with a mask on. But his spider sense has gone off. So he wants to try to find the guy, but he can't find the guy. Again, this is one of those things I noted about the buildings and having a slight tilt or angle to them. Again, it emphasizes and makes you feel like you're looking up at something. So it makes it feel like it's higher, taller. It's a way to show height and scale of a large building is a great example here, without having the actual physical space and drawing it on the whole page, right? So that's pretty good. Spider-Man, he thinks maybe this guy is the guy, but he doesn't set off his spider sense to start with, and it turns out he was a crook, and the Human Torch nabs him. Again, this all plays into the story later, so that's good. Again, not much from an art standpoint, tons of just talking heads. I have mentioned this in plenty of other videos that we've done. However, Steve Ditko does an excellent job of making all of his figures look different, even background characters on the street. So, these three men looking up at this helicopter all look slightly different, right? Whether it's the hat, what kind of wrinkles they have around their eyes, what is the shape of their nose, you know, that kind of stuff. This lady down here, and the way that she's dressed in her hat is very different than we see, of course, the younger women like Liz and Betty, or even this woman here walking down the street. This guy with the way that he looks, again, very unique. Are we ever going to see this character again? Probably not. But he put the time into making him a unique person. Same thing with the crowd here. So Steve does a great job with that. Here's some nice cartooning with Peter. Again, we're talking about the body language. So this trope here is that Aunt May is still continuing to try to set Peter up with Mary Jane Watson, whose aunt lives next door to them. And, you know, he's saying, I've got a girlfriend. I don't want to go on a date. And Aunt May is like, no, I'm telling you. Well, Mary Jane is sick. She can't go out with Peter tonight. And so he ducks Mary Jane again. And so this is this ongoing trope for a while. But this is a great cartooning of him, you know, pretending to be very upset that he can't go on this blind date with Mary Jane. Real nice. This little subtle smile, the hand to the chest. Really great illustration stuff. Again, things you might see in a magazine illustration, you know, classic illustration type stuff. Great cartooning there. Fantastic. Let's see here. Not a lot here either. I do like this sort of mimicry between Spider-Man. So he's waiting to show up to this event. The Green Goblin is zooming over because he read about it in the paper, and he's going to see what's going on. But even though the figures aren't in the exact same pose, they're the same size. They're both standing kind of legs spread, one arm forward, one arm back. So I like that kind of mimicry of the two of them. I think that's a nice panel to panel move there. Spidey lands, and we get into our action. So the Goblin shows up, and the reason that people were laughing on the cover is because Spidey's going to try to pretend like it's not a big deal. Like, I'm going to keep this up like it's part of the act so that people don't panic and hurt themselves trying to get out of the hall there, the meeting hall or whatever it is, the ballroom. Again, not too bad. Nothing super crazy exciting here. A lot of jumping. We see the Goblin really showing all of his new weapons in action. So he's got his, he calls them his Goblin Sparks that he shoots from his gloves. He's got these bats, and the bats make this real thick smoke screen around Spidey so he can't see anything. Then we've got the pumpkin, which is a bomb. And we see the maneuverability of the Goblin Glider, which is much more than the original, than his rocket broom. So Spidey leaping around, and then story perspective, this blonde guy right here, this is the Human Torch in his human persona. So he's there with a date, and she's kind of telling him like, hey, don't, you know, this is great, but don't you try to steal the show there, Johnny. And he's like, no, I won't. This page is really good. I like this close-up framing. So you've got Spidey in the front and this foot really close, which is really nice. I've talked about this in the last few episodes as well. However, just take note, never ever end the edge of your foot or the edge of your hand on the panel border. It flattens it out. If this foot was slightly behind the panel border, or even, heaven forbid, broke the panel border, would be better than ending it right on this tangent on the panel border, because again, it flattens out the page. When you put the panel border overlapping things, like on this guy's head, it feels like it's an image inside of it. So it immediately says this is happening in the page. When the two things are on the same plane of existence, that same flat plane of the page, now you lose the illusion of depth. So you just, again, young artist, new artist, just beware. It's something, there's a lot of things to keep in mind when you're drawing your pages and composing your pages. This is just one little tip here. But otherwise, I really like the figure. I like it that he's framing the kids talking in the background. And now we have this, again, trope of, if Peter doesn't somehow also show up where Spider-Man is, people will immediately figure it out. He couldn't have just said, I couldn't make it. It just stays Spider-Man, but that's fine. That's fine. Really nice, just twisting and turning through the figure. This one is great here too, where you've got the arms in different positions, the legs going in different directions. Really, really nice there. Johnny Storm as the Torch. He sees that there's some crooks up top that are going to use all the action going on as a distraction, and they're going to go rob the door, basically the money that everybody paid to get in. Johnny sees him, so he flies up to stop the crooks and gets right in the middle between the Goblin and Spider-Man. And that's, again, there's your cover, right? So that's, but again, I don't know why he's smiling on the cover when he's zooming off to run off some crooks there, but he does. I like the image of the crooks running. I like, again, the angle. It's not quite straight on. We're looking down at it a little bit. And so I just thought this was really cool. I got the feeling like those fireballs are zipping out. I don't know why there's no glass in this window. Why is there a giant like portal with no glass? Did the Goblin break it? No, the Goblin just shows up. He's in a darkened corner backstage, it says. So he doesn't make an entrance through that window. So why does this building have this giant circle window with no glass in it up top? I don't get it, but okay. So anyway, I like the motion of the fireballs. I like the twisting, and they really feel like they're sprinting, running away. I like that. And then this Goblin Human Torch face-off is very nice as well. The way the Torch is swooping down, Goblin's stance is really nice. Yeah, I really I like this panel a lot as well. So Peter shows up so that he can be in the same place. No, I'm here. No, what are you talking about? I've been here the whole time. I don't know what you mean. And now the Torch is starting to fight the Green Goblin, and I guess ironically or fortunate for the Goblin, he happens to have weapons that are designed, to kind of help to fight the Human Torch. So this ghost that he throws forms like an airtight bubble around him, so he's going to use up all his oxygen trying to burn his way out. And then he has this smoke screen that he uses from his glider. So I guess the Goblin's ready for anything, just about. So now that Peter's made an appearance, now he's got to run off. And here's your jealousy, because he runs over to the kids, to the people who are like, where's Peter? So he shows up. Hey, I'm right here. She happens to touch him because his hair's all messy. Here's his girlfriend. She sees it from across the room and freaks out. Oh no. Because heaven forbid anybody talks to each other in these comics sometimes. Again, more great crowd scene. They're just like, they're starting to figure out, like, I think this is real. I think this is a superhero or superheroes fighting a villain. But every character is a little bit different. Pretty cool. This page I thought was great. I love this motion that's being explained by the movement of his sash and his sort of satchel bag that he has with all the stuff in it, and the hat, right? So Spidey swings around and comes up from underneath, and so the Goblin backs away, but the motion as he backs away, all his stuff flies forward, and then as Spidey is swinging up, he zips down to get below him, and again, the sash, the bag goes up, the hat goes up. Great simple ways of showing motion. So FYI, if you're designing characters, especially in the superhero comic book world, It's one of the reasons we still see capes now and then, right? The joke from The Incredibles, nope, capes, and all of the reasons capes are hokey. Capes show motion. You can have somebody stopping quick, but the cape keeps fluttering. While they're flying, the cape is moving. When they're, if they get shot or hit by something, by a bad guy, the cape can move in one direction, the body moves in the other. It's a great way of just showing motion. So as you're designing your characters, sashes, capes, long hair, hats, anything that kind of comes off of the character can really help sell motion. Now in this panel here, this one I think is an example of the Marvel method and where it may have gotten wrong. And I think I may have talked about this before, but for anybody who's not familiar, let me explain very quickly what the Marvel method is. So the way that these comics were made back in the day, Stan Lee, the writer, was writing basically at this stage, every comic book that Marvel sold. So if you read Thor, it was written by Stan. Fantastic Four was written by Stan. Spider-Man's written by Stan. Hulk's written by Stan. The Avengers is written by Stan. Like, you name it, right? So the guy's writing a whole bunch of comics all at once. And so he has to be fast. So basically, he writes a plot. And the plot is just, what's the story from point A to point Z? So in this plot, you'd have Spider-Man has some ups and downs with the public. Flash Thompson starts a club. Spidey shows up. The Green Goblin also shows up. There's a fight. And then we're getting to this point here in the story. We'll get to this later. Spidey has to run away. And the Human Torch, who's also there, runs the Green Goblin off. Kind of the plot of the story. Steve Ditko then takes this idea of a plot. What is the through line of the story? And he's the one that breaks down the imagery. So he draws it. So if the plot says that Spidey and the Green Goblin fight until Spidey hears some news and has to leave, he's the one that choreographs this fight. So then once all the imagery is drawn, all the pages go back to Stan, and he adds the dialogue balloons based on what is happening in the page. So there was not something that said Spidey swings around the Green Goblin's glider, and as he is coming up, the glider drops down and Green Goblin says this line. Steve drew this as part of the choreography of the fight, and Stan is the one that puts in, this line about, you didn't expect me to do that, did you? So he punches him. This to me looks like a man who's been punched in the jaw, an uppercut to the jaw. He's flying backwards. His hands are splayed out. There's no, it doesn't look like he's trying to save himself. It looks like he got punched. But the dialogue says, oh, you missed me again. So sometimes this kind of stuff would happen where the artist would draw it one way. We draw Spider-Man getting punched, and then he flips over to land. That's fine. He's a tough guy. He can take a punch. But Stan dialogued it in a different way that doesn't really, in my opinion, doesn't align with the imagery we're seeing here in the page. He could have just, Goblin doesn't have to say much of anything. Spidey could just be going, oof, or, a thought balloon of, oh, that one stung, or, man, I can't, gosh, I can't believe I let him hit me, or whatever. But it's clear to me that he got punched there. But I like the way he backflips, he's going to land, and then here's your trope. He overhears a phone call, of course, that Aunt May, she's had another heart attack, and some people are looking for Peter because his aunt's in the hospital with a heart attack, because that's how you do things. I guess maybe in the day, but how did anybody know to call him at this club to see if he's there? Anyway, so and of course people are kind enough to go, oh sure, let me see if I can find him. So he hears, and he's got to run away, which again is not going to be good for Spidey's reputation, but he doesn't care at this point. and everybody's looking, right? The fight stops, the Human Torch is looking, the Green Goblin's looking, Jonah is in heaven. Everybody's like, what is going on? So now, since the Green Goblin really he wasn't there to fight the Human Torch, he was there for Spider-Man. So he blinds him and then takes off through that miraculous open portal window that I talked about. And Peter is running as fast as he can to the hospital. He doesn't care. And finds out that there's Aunt May. And of course, again, here's your trope of your fickle public. So, man, he ran away. He's a coward. He's a big phony. Even though he's saved the city so many times by now. This happened, and they're like, nobody gives him the benefit of the doubt. And of course, Peter then is questioning, why am I doing this? Why am I Spider-Man? What am I going to do? So he has this existential wrestling with his fate and in the shadows, which is your trope. We've seen this ending in a number of Spidey comics. He tends to end up sitting alone in the dark with these noir shadows behind him, as he's debating his love life, Aunt May, being Spider-Man, his grades, his job. I mean, it happens all the time. So this is a very common Spider-Man ending. And there's the end of the book. And so there is Amazing Spider-Man 17. There's some really good stuff in there. Like I said, I think there's some awesome line work done by Steve Ditko. There's some amazing action, some great body language, some really fun cartooning within the talking heads and the quiet moments of just real great facial features, twisting of hands, stuff like that. People, again, if you're, a lot of these things I keep saying, if you're a young artist, meaning, or if you're a newer artist and you're trying to figure out how to draw comics, how to tell stories through sequential imagery. When people are talking, like me right now, I talk with my hands. I move my head around. I'm not standing very straight and just talking and staring straight at you. People will turn their head, look up with their eyes. These are little things that make your figures more real. So you have to learn how to add little twists and turns and touches, and that comes with experience. So again, this issue, while not necessarily my favorite issue so far in the series, really does have some nice stuff that you can take and learn from, again, as a young or new artist. So there we go. There is the Amazing Spider-Man 17. We've seen the return of the Green Goblin, and in a series where we don't always see a ton of returns, right? We're still kind of half and half between, villains like Dr. Octopus showing up multiple times, but then we also have a lot of one-offs, characters that show up one time and then we haven't seen him again yet. So it's clear they kind of could tell, probably from the fan mail, from the reaction, and maybe just Stan and Steve Ditko really like the Green Goblin. I think when you hit on something that's going to be special, sometimes you can just feel it. And I'm sure that's what that was with the Goblin. And so we're going to see a lot more of the Green Goblin as we move forward into the series. So again, thank you all. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, think about subscribing to the channel. Again, we're going to be having some more content. We're continuing to do stuff. I'd love to do some more drawing streams, things of that nature, throughout the summer. Hopefully I'll have a little more time for that right now. And I'd love you to be here and enjoy it with me. So thanks. We look forward to talking to you all next week when it comes time for more Spider-Man art retrospective. Thank you so much.